audio, and then I'm going to mute. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Joe Anastasi. I am the program manager for member services for the local Northeast Ohio chapter. I want to welcome you all to our presentation this evening on the topic of Disciplined Agile. Our own Steve Peterson will be conducting the presentation, and just want to let everybody know that the slides will be available within a week on our chapter website, and also we'll have information about PDUs at the end of the presentation, and we will be sending all the attendees an email with information about PDUs and slides, and we're recording this video now, so we're going to upload this video to YouTube, so you'll have access to this presentation at a future date. So again, welcome everyone. I appreciate it. All right, so our agenda, we're going to go through some introductions, some chapter news and updates. Steve's going to give an overview of Disciplined Agile, which you'll find very informative. We'll cover upcoming events and information about claiming your PDUs. Between myself, Joe, and Steve, we're going to be toggling the presentation and hosting. I will do my best to check the chat room for questions as they come along and relay them to Steve as needed. If you would, please feel free to put questions in the chat, and also any thoughts or suggestions as we go along. All right. We are using Zoom, obviously, for this event, where this is actually a Zoom webinar. We are going to use that chat feature, as I mentioned, so please go in there and put a question in the chat. Please be patient with us. We won't be able to answer every question as they're posted. And if you would also limit the chat activity to questions about the presentation. If you do want to reach out to an individual to say hello or whatever, please save that for the end of the presentation. Thank you. In your chat window or in your Zoom window, whether you're using a browser or the client, there's a button at the bottom that looks like a chat box. It's either going to be like a talk box with 3 ellipses in it, but I'll definitely have the word chat in there. That's a button you click on to actually post things in the chat. I want to give special thanks to our sponsors. We have 3 excellent sponsors that have been helping promote the chapter. They are Apex Systems, Strategic Systems, and Tech Systems, all 3 of which we really appreciate. They are always looking for good talent from a hiring perspective, and they deliver value by offering consulting and contracting services for project management and other technologies. So if you are looking for help or need work, definitely these 3 companies are great to talk to. All right, I want to welcome, I won't read all the names, but I want to welcome all these new members. We haven't had a chapter meeting, a regular one, in a while. So we're going back to April 1st here. So these are the individuals that have joined our chapter in the last couple of months. Congratulations and welcome to the chapter. Hope you enjoy our offerings. And if anytime you have any questions about your membership, or services the chapter provides, please contact membership@pmineo.org. Congratulations, welcome. Also want to congratulate these individuals for earning their PMP. These are going all the way back to April 1st. Congratulations, you had a lot of work on your hands to study and prepare for the exam, and congratulations on passing, and now you're officially a PMP, and these kind of meetings will help you keep your PMP by giving you the PDUs and education credits that you need to continue forward. So congratulations. All right, so we have some upcoming chapter meetings, and we repeat the slide later on, so I won't go into a terrible amount of detail here, but we've been working very hard at providing virtual events throughout the year. Now that with everything that's happening in the world, we definitely want to keep things moving along, provide the content at the local level. So we have great events coming up. We have our Tech Thursday events that happen every third Thursday of the month. Our next one is on June 18th, a couple days away, using Power BI to provide portfolio dashboards. That's this coming Thursday. If you haven't registered yet, please register. On July 6th, we have a presentation by Lee Lambert, Strategic Design and Project Delivery. That one will be in the evening. On July 15th, we have a Women in Project Management book club. All are welcome. That'll be in the evening as well. July 16th, okay, that may be a typo. July 16th, we do have another Tech Thursday webinar. We will correct this slide before we mail it out. We have another Tech Thursday webinar on the 16th. On August 20th, Microsoft Teams in the project management world. And November 5th is our professional development day. We're not accepting registrations yet for November 5th. We're still in the planning stage. We've re-anchored the PDD this year from an in-person event to a virtual event. So we are combining that with International Project Management Day, and we'll have 3 webinars in there and a social event. So like I said, we will correct the slide, add anything that's come up in the recent timeline. For an accurate and current list of events, please visit PMINEO.org to view these events, the details, and to register. How do I keep up with my PDUs? For those of you that have a credential, a PMP, a PMI ACP that need to maintain PDUs, we have chapter webinars, the Thursday Tech webinars. We'll have evening leadership and strategy webinars. Projectmanagement.com has webinars. You need a PMI login to access that content. There's a couple of really good podcasts out there. PMI Projectified podcast offers something, I think, monthly. Very good content there. Also, our professional development partner, Velociteach, has a Manage This podcast, which is very good. Both of those are great ways to accrue PDUs in an audio format. Of course, that's what podcasts are, and a good way to keep up with your certification. If you don't have a credential, you don't have to worry about PDUs, but there's still good content out there for you to enjoy and learn. So still take advantage of that. All right, so here is the information for you to claim your one technical PDU for this evening. For those of you that have a, if you don't have a credential, no work for you. If you do have a credential and you need the PDUs, you can report them using this information below. That claim code, the C048, C6, etc. That is a quick way to put your PDU in. So you just type that code in the system, and if it pre-fills everything else for you. So I'll leave the screen up for a second so you can take a look at it. But again, we will be emailing this out, the slides and the information soon. All right, thank you. So I'm going to hand this over to Steve. Before I do, I'm going to check the chat room to see if there's any questions. There's been some activity in here. Hello. Do you also go over SAP PM? I'm not familiar with that, Antoinette, the SAP PM. If you would, could you email me that question at member services, all one word, member services at PMINEO.org, and I can look into it for you. All right. The next question in here. Melissa, yes, we should be adding the ACP certification to the list of certifications. We will do so. Not sure what happened, got missed in the list, but we will add it. So congratulations, Melissa. Charles, your question was, instead of a PDU, can I use this for education requirement for PMI ACP? I don't think that events like this are qualified for education hours to apply for certification. They're generally used to have to claim PDUs after certification. But definitely check PMI.org and see what their detailed requirements are for education to apply for certification. I think those are all the questions and comments, so thank you. I will continue to monitor the chat room, and I'm turning this over to Steve Peterson. Steve?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you for joining. I am, for those who don't know me, I am Steve Peterson. I am a member of the chapter. I work as a volunteer with the events committee. And I am also one of the Agile champions for the chapter. And I am here tonight to talk about Disciplined Agile. So I have to tell you, this is really a great step PMI has taken with Disciplined Agile. For those who aren't aware, I'm going to give you a little bit of background of what's went on. Disciplined Agile, it's been around for a little while. PMI acquired it in 2019 as a building block to address new ways of working in an increasing agile world, and to also help expand the capabilities of project managers who are increasingly finding themselves transitioning into new ways of working in the agile space. Disciplined Agile it's really unique in that it's loaded with very rich content and flexibility for how to work in an enterprise agile world. It goes well beyond frameworks such as Scrum and Kanban to address how to work agile in a very complicated enterprise environment these days. So some background about Disciplined Agile. It was created by Scott Ambler and Mark Lyons starting around 2009, when Scott Ambler was the chief agile and lean methodologist for IBM worldwide. And then shortly thereafter, Scott and Mark collaborated to write the first book called Disciplined Agile Delivery, which was published in 2012. And since then, Disciplined Agile has evolved greatly, especially recently. And right now, it's the second most popular enterprise agile framework behind Scaled Agile, known as SAFe. However, unlike SAFe, Disciplined Agile, it's much more flexible. It's not prescriptive in any way. It's very flexible, and it can be used on projects and products of all types and sizes. But until PMI's acquisition of Disciplined Agile, it's not been widely heard of. But that's changing quickly as the worldwide reach of PMI helps add this robust offering to its product portfolio, and also as a benefit to you as members. There's been overwhelming interest in Disciplined Agile. 300 chapters, there's 300 chapters around the world, and right now, about more than half, a little bit more than half of them have nominated a volunteer Disciplined Agile champion for their branches, and we're one of them. So we're going to be talking a lot more of this at future events. There are certifications available for Disciplined Agile. I don't have a lot of that information tonight. I'm not going to really be able to get into that much detail about it. Just to kind of set the stage for this overview, it's more or less just an informational session about what Disciplined Agile is, and the goal. My goal is to hopefully at the end of this presentation is to give everybody more of an understanding of what it is and put some context around it. Why Disciplined Agile? Why are we even talking about it? I'm gonna get into some slides here soon. But so what's happening today in the Agile space? It's become very institutionalized, very kind of chaotic. There's multiple frameworks. There's multiple certifications. There's different mindsets. There's a lot of confusion. Which certification's the best? Which approach should I do? Should I do Scrum? Should I do Safe? Where do I start? And there's umpteen million consultants out there rifling off Scrum Master certifications. It's a 2-day crash course in Scrum. And people get these certifications and they think that Scrum is the only way to do Agile, and you have to, you can only have 4 to 9 people on a team, and you got to be co-located. People can't work from home, and there's a lot of purist mentality with it, but it doesn't address scaling, and it leaves one thing out, in that every person, team, and organization is unique. We have different ways of working. We face different situational issues at work. Disciplined Agile gives flexibility to tailor your approach. It gives you options. It really gives you a lot more choices to be able to fit your way of working into your project. So let's get a little bit more into what it is. Let me see okay, so Disciplined Agile, and I'm just going to kind of read through this definition of what it is, and then we'll get into a little bit more context behind it. So Disciplined Agile, it's a process decision toolkit that provides straightforward guidance to help people, teams, and organizations to streamline their processes in a context-sensitive manner. Disciplined Agile provides a solid foundation for business agility by showing how the various activities such as solution delivery, IT operations, enterprise architecture, portfolio management, security, finance, procurement, and many others work together. Disciplined Agile also describes what these activities should address, provides a range of options for doing so, and describes the trade-offs associated with each option. So let me just kind of give you a little bit of insight to this. Many organizations, when they decide to go Agile and they start on their Agile journey, most of them adopt Scrum because it is the most popular Agile framework, and it's pushed very heavily by coaches and consultants who offer a 2-day workshop to become a certified Scrum Master. And there's nothing wrong with Scrum. In fact, Scrum is a foundation for one of the methodologies within Disciplined Agile, and Disciplined Agile does use Scrum as part of what's known as a construction phase. Scrum though, and the other Agile frameworks, that's only part of what's required to deliver sophisticated solutions to stakeholders. Agile teams also need to look at other methods to fill in some of the process gaps that Scrum purposely, it ignores a lot of them, right? And same with Kanban and XP. These methods heavily address execution of sprints or iterations, whatever you want to call them. They're more involved in the engine building of an agile project, right? Really at the team level, running sprints, tracking velocity, story pointing, and however else you might run an agile project at the team level. But the rest of how do these frameworks fit into the actual enterprise is a big question, and it's sort of left up to you to figure out. And a lot of organizations really struggle with it. It's basically what you're trying to do. What a lot of these companies end up in a dilemma of taking a fancy race car engine that these agile teams build at the ground level, and they try to put it into a tractor, which is actually what the organization might be running at. They may not just be there. So Disciplined Agile tries to address that. So that's kind of what we're doing. And the other problem is that sometimes organizations, when they go agile, they try to copy someone else's methodology or someone else's. They try to reinvent something that's already there. So Disciplined Agile does help provide a fit for context practice that will help regardless of project, size of team, or type of organization. So this next slide, successful organizations take responsibility for evolving their own agility. So to the right, you're going to see Choose Your Wow. This is actually the main book of Disciplined Agile. It's actually been updated. There's a newer version that is PMI approved now. And it's the same thing. It's called Choose Your Wow. It's WOW stands for way of working. But to kind of get back to what we were talking about, success does not come from adopting a prescriptive framework or methodology like Scrum or SAFe. It is a good start. It does, though, business agility comes to choosing your way of working to optimize the situation. So again, each organization is different. We all have different experiences. Teams should be able to, an organization should be able to choose their way of working because each team's different. One problem organizations fall into is that, again, they try to retrofit Scrum or another framework into their existing processes that might be heavily outdated or very slow, and they end up with what's called Scrum fall. You've probably heard some of the jokes. Those of you who are on agile teams have heard things like Wagile and some of the other memes, I guess you could call agile. But it does happen, and that's one of the things that the way of working helps solve. So in Disciplined Agile, there are 7 principles about Disciplined Agile that these principles follow the Agile Manifesto. They're evolved from the Agile Manifesto. Everything in Agile comes from the Agile Manifesto. So we're going to go through some of these, all of them. And at the center is delighting customers. Delighting customers. This means that customers are delighted when your products and services not only fulfill their needs, but you also surpass their needs. Being awesome. Who doesn't want to be part of an awesome team doing awesome things while working for an awesome organization? Being pragmatism. Many agile practitioners are very fanatical about following a specific methodology strictly by the book. An example is a lot of Scrum purists will tell you that teams can only be 5 to 9 people. Otherwise, you're breaking the rules of Scrum. Your teams have to be co-located in the same room without cubicles and in this big common area. You're not allowed to work from home. You have to be on site every single day, 40 hours a week. Team members must be 100% dedicated to the project. But the reality is that you're going to deal with a lot of suboptimal situations in Agile, such as distributed teams. You're probably going to deal with larger team sizes that go beyond nine team members. And you're probably going to end up in situations where people are split across projects. It's just the way it is, and you have to be able to deal with it and make your way of working pragmatic. A lot has changed since the Agile Manifesto was written by the original founders, and Disciplined Agile recognizes this. And rather than saying you can't be agile, instead it says let's be pragmatic and aim to be as effective as we can. Another principle is around context. Context counts. The way one company does agile may be completely different than the way another company does agile. Even within a company, there could be different projects that need to do agile in different ways. You got to do what's right for the situation you're in. Each person's unique, each project's unique. So that is, you have to be able to tailor it, and Disciplined Agile recognizes this as one of the 7 principles. Choice is good. That's another principle of Disciplined Agile. One size does not fit all in Agile. A lot of frameworks give you one way of doing things. Disciplined Agile provides different practices that can be used for a team's unique situation. Maybe Scrum's not the best choice for some teams. Maybe Kanban is a better approach, or maybe extreme programming is a better approach. It depends. Another principle is optimize flow. Optimizing flow is a fundamental lean concept that you find in lean and Kanban systems. So what this says is that we want to make sure in Disciplined Agile that we're effective in what we do in terms of optimizing our overall workflow. And Disciplined Agile does provide some guidance for how you want to optimize the flow of value to your stakeholders, so that you can make the entire organization and view it as a system rather than just individual teams and people just kind of doing their own little projects. And the last one is enterprise awareness. When people are enterprise aware, when they're aware of their enterprise, they're more motivated to consider overall needs of their organization to ensure that their contributions are contributing positively to the goals of the enterprise. Oops. So I'm going to move on to some more slides here. So what does this mean? PMI's classic project management and Disciplined Agile guidance, they are different purposes, but they do complement themselves in some way. As you can see by this diagram, there is a little bit of overlap, and I'll kind of explain this a little bit here. So some people are asking if Disciplined Agile is going to be integrated with the PMBOK guide. The new PMBOK guide does include some Agile content. There's the Agile practice guide that's included as part of the PMBOK guide, but the answer to this is no. There's no intention of combining the PMBOK guide to what's known as the Disciplined Agile body of knowledge in one, and the body of knowledge being, the way of working, because each program has its own approach. Ideally, though, as project managers, all of us, we should know both approaches, just to stay competitive in our careers and in the workplace. But the reality is that some projects are best suited for traditional project management, and while others are more favorable for Agile, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But there is some common overlap between the two, in that the traditional project management and Agile kind of overlap in the areas more around risk management and governance, in governance guidance. And that's really what Disciplined Agile, that's one of the areas that Disciplined Agile is trying to address, is more the governance side of running an overall Agile program in the organization. Now, some of you, and this is some of the information that's been given to me from Mark Lyons and Scott Ambler, is the future of the PMI ACP certification. And there are no plans of stopping it. It's a good certification. There's no plans that's going to go away and be replaced by Disciplined Agile. So just want to make sure that we're clear with that. there are some of the DA certifications that align kind of in parallel with the PMI-ACP. So for example, if you do have a PMI-ACP certification, you can, I believe you're automatically granted the ability to attain the Disciplined Agile certification. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it's something to check out because there is a Disciplined Agile certification. I think it's like the entry level Disciplined Agile certification that is in the same tier as the PMI-ACP. So if you have the PMI-ACP, you could probably start almost automatically getting into some of the Disciplined Agile methods that are out there. But again, I'm not saying that for certain. So we can get more information for everyone. So let me move along here. So Disciplined Agile, it is described in 4 views. At the ground level is the mindset, the principles and guidelines. And this mindset, oops, sorry, I accidentally, principles and guidelines, these follow the values and principles from the Agile Manifesto for the most part. We went over the 7 principles. There are also promises and guidelines that are part of that as well. And they address a bunch of various Agile principles and goals and things like that, such as validating our learning, applying design thinking, and a bunch of other pretty lengthy topics that we don't have time to go over right now. So I'm just kind of going over everything with you. But then it also is fundamental with people, with roles and responsibilities and team structures. You know, projects are made up of people. They're made up of teams. DA, Disciplined Agile, puts people first because the way we work together is a very strong primary determinant of being successful. The other view of Disciplined Agile is flow. Flow is described as life cycles and workflows to show how information flows between different groups. And one of the goals of Disciplined Agile is to look at improving the flow of value through the delivery life cycle. Remember, Agile is all about delivering value, value-driven delivery to the customer. Let's prioritize our backlog to deliver the most important, high priority, highest value things to the customer first. And then we have the last is practices. And this is really fundamental to Disciplined Agile. There's a huge library within the way of working of well-organized practices where you can find different techniques to fit the situation you're in. Okay, so I'm going to move along here, and I want to talk really quick about the primary roles of a Disciplined Agile team. Very similar to most Agile projects for the most part. The first role is the team lead. The team lead is the Agile process expert, keeps the team focused on achievement of goals, removes impediments. This would be equivalent to a Scrum Master, for example, in Scrum. Disciplined Agile leaves those terms out and kind of keeps it more generic as team lead. And then some of the other terms here, some of the other roles, there is a product owner in Disciplined Agile, and the product owner owns the product vision, scope, and priorities of the solution. If you work in Scrum, again, the product owner owns the product backlog, tells the team what they need to work on and what's most important. And then we have the architecture owner. The architecture owner, they own the decisions and technical priorities, help mitigate key technical risks. And then the team member. The team member is the team, the cross-functional team members that actually work on delivering the solution. These team members are developers, testers, they could be business analysts. It's very agnostic in the sense that the team is a cross-functional team, just like you'd find on any other Scrum project or any other Agile flavor. And then we have, last but not least, we have the stakeholder. This is the customer, but other stakeholders. It's not just the customer who consumes the product, but the sponsor, the operations engineers, support staff, everybody who's involved. Okay, so Disciplined Agile, it isn't agnostic. It's referred to a hybrid delivery method that leverages strategy from a variety of sources. Disciplined Agile delivery, it adopts practices and strategies from existing sources, and it provides advice. It provides advice for when and how to apply them together. So in one sense, methods such as Scrum, Kanban, and Lean, these provide the foundation, I guess what you would call the process bricks for Disciplined Agile delivery. And the rest of it, the rest of Disciplined Agile provides more of the mortar to hold these pieces together. So what we're doing here is nothing's reinvented here in Disciplined Agile at all. There's nothing late breaking. I mean, these are all methods that have sort of been compiled together, and they've kind of been put more into better context to help teams choose how they want to work given the situation that they're in. So it's very hybrid. You have different choices. Another point of Disciplined Agile is how your team interacts, with others, the enterprise awareness factor of Disciplined Agile. This hexagon in the middle, this represents a typical Scrum team, or maybe a Kanban team, just in general, a typical Agile team, to kind of sum it up. And it shows how that team, that Agile team, interacts with others in the organization to get the job done. Regardless if you're Scrum or, I mean, you could even be waterfall. You still have to, especially in the Agile space, you have to interact with finance, operations, people management, procurement, marketing, architecture, security. It's all a shared partnership. And what Disciplined Agile tries to do is it helps them become agile as well. It sort of tries to address this from more of a pragmatic perspective of how your Agile team would interact with the rest of the organization. It goes well beyond a prescriptive nature of SAFe, for example. So this next slide. So these are what are known as process blades. And these process blades follow what's called a goal-driven approach in Disciplined Agile. And behind each of these process blades, there is a process map, which we'll show here in just a second here. Data management, for example, I'm going to give you an example of this. This is one of the process blades called data management. And what you see in Disciplined Agile is that if you were addressing data management, for example, data management is known as a goal. And each goal here, data management, for example, has decision points that you would make. Let's say you are trying to solve data management in your project. There are decision points that are given here, such as improve data quality, evolve data assets, ensure data security, and some other points here. And within each of these data points, there are guidelines, there are recommendations of things that you can do to help improve data quality, database refactoring. The ones that are highlighted or bolded in bold are the ones that are more recommended, more of starting points for you to look at, if you will. I've got a few more examples here. And I want to this kind of leads into what are known as process goals. of Disciplined Agile. That's what this figure is showing here. There are 21 goals in total in Disciplined Agile delivery, and each of them is described by what's known as a process goal. Disciplined Agile is goal-driven. It's focused on outcomes rather than prescriptive procedures. So a DA team is going to need to consider, a Disciplined Agile team would need to consider how to address each goal according to the situation they're in. So one thing I want to note here too, that each of these process goals are broken down into inception, construction, and transition. These are known as phases within Disciplined Agile delivery. And for example, in inception, inception would be referred to, for example, as sprint zero. If you're in Scrum, for example, some teams like to have a sprint zero, which indicates that's like your discovery sprint. That's kind of where you form the team. You might look at the scope. You might need to do some high-level release planning. You might have to set a project charter, and then followed by that, then you go into your construction phase, which are your sprints, for example, your sprint 1, sprint 2, however many sprints you need to release the software. And then your transition phase is where you would actually deploy the software. So I want to just kind of highlight this because some Agile purists are going to say that this concept of phases is wrong. It's not Agile because, I thought that's a waterfall term. It's not. And the fact of the matter is that most Agile teams, I guarantee you all of them, at least the ones I've worked with, they work in some sort of serial manner like this at a high level, right? I mean, if you're an Agile team, if you're running Scrum, you have to invest some upfront time to do discovery and initiation. You still have to have some sort of statement of work or project statement telling you what the customer wants. You have to spend some time upfront doing some initiation work. You're not going to do a full-blown initiation. You're going to do just enough to get the project started to kick it off. And then, right after that, you're going to go into your construction phase where you would do your sprints, and then you're going to deploy it. It's really what this is. So don't want anybody to freak out, especially if there's any Agile purists out there who are like, this is waterfall. It's not. Just kind of trying to put everything in context for you. I'm going to get into more of a process goal diagram. We're going to talk about this explore scope, for example, to kind of get into how Disciplined Agile would help guide your team. If, let's say, for example, you are starting a new project and you're going through the inception of the Agile project, you're going to have these decision points. You're going to have these goals. You're going to need to form a team. Maybe you don't need to align with enterprise direction. You don't have to go through all of these different process goals. You pick the ones that need to be addressed. So let's say, for example, I went too far. You're going to explore scope. We're going to look into that because pretty much most projects have to explore scope. But before we get into that, I just want to go over a little bit more of what the process goal diagram means in Disciplined Agile. Again, the process goal is noted by here to the left, and that, for example, would be explore scope. Decision point, this is one of the decision points. And within that decision point, there will be an ordered list of options. The bolded ones are good starting points. Maybe some of the ones that are lower in the list, they might be less desirable strategies, but they're given to you as an option because this is not prescriptive. Disciplined Agile seeks to give you different options to fit your project. So again, here's an example of that explore scope within what we would know as an inception of an Agile project. And when you're exploring scope in Agile, there's different decision points that you need to be aware of. Not all of these may be applicable to your project. Explore the purpose, for example. If you're going to explore the purpose, how do you do it? There's different ways to do it. You can use an impact map. You can use a mind map. You could explore the purpose by, let's talk about the outcome of the project, of the scope. What's the outcome? What is the end game the customer wants? Let's look at another one here. Explore quality requirements. When you're planning scope, you need to look at quality. You need to think about quality, especially in Agile. How do you do that in Agile? Well, acceptance criteria. Each user story needs to have acceptance criteria to be the end all. This is what the customer wants. This is their quality check. Or there could be an explicit list, or it could be technical stories. Apply modeling strategies. You may want to apply a modeling strategy when you're exploring scope. It gives you choices of agile modeling sessions. You could look at doing agile modeling sessions. Open space is another one. Joint application requirement session. So the point here is that this is meant to illustrate the process goals in Disciplined Agile, the decision points that you may or may not need to make, and some of the recommendations, some of the best practices. Now, I will tell you that the Way of Working book, the Disciplined Agile Delivery book, it's not going to get into like how do you do a mind map, how do you write a modified impact map. That's not in the book. This is more to give you guidance so that as a team, your team can then go and figure out how are you going to create a user story, or how do you create user stories? How do you do a user story map? Those are things then that you can go and refine on your own with your team. So hopefully this kind of makes sense. This is a big part of what the Disciplined Agile delivery is it really focuses on these process goals and decision points. Exploring usage persona, you could look at different things to explore usage. So this is kind of an example then. If we were exploring usage, these different recommendations here, these are listed here. These are all in the Way of Working. It will kind of give you an option of what it is. It'll tell you what it is, and it'll tell you kind of what the trade-offs are, what it is. So it gives you some sort of guidance for each of these. If you wanted to do unified modeling language here, it gives you kind of what UML is, and so you pick which ones you need to use and what approach you want to do as a team, and then you move forward with it. Okay. So teams should approach or choose an appropriate life cycle. Disciplined Agile, it does support, right now it supports 6 frameworks. And I'm not going to really get into these in a lot of detail, but the first one, just to kind of give you a little bit of an example, Agile. Okay, it supports an Agile lifecycle. This is more of a Scrum-based life cycle for solution delivery projects. Okay, this really follows the Scrum process. Continuous delivery, Agile. This is also a Scrum-based life cycle, but it's more for long-standing teams that are going to move into continuous delivery. And then there's an exploratory life cycle. This is more of like a lean startup-based life cycle for maybe doing experiments to potential customers. Supports a design thinking approach. And then we have lean. This is more of a Kanban based life cycle for solution delivery. And then we have continuous delivery lean. This moves lean into more towards the continuous delivery. And then there's a program life cycle for a team of an agile team or lean teams. So just kind of give you a little bit of context of the agile life cycle of kind of how this is laid out. So in the middle here, you're going to see those of you who are Scrum Masters or who have been through Scrum training, this illustrates what happens in a Scrum project, right? You have your iteration, your 1 to 4 week iterations or sprints. They call them iterations here, but in Scrum, it's sprints. They're interchangeable. And then here you have your product backlog, and you have your highest priority work items that go into your sprint backlog, and then you make your tasks, and then you run through your sprints. These are your stand-ups, and then you have your solution at the end of the sprint, and then, or it could be a set of sprints, and then you have your transition of where you're going to release it into production. So really what Disciplined Agile does is it takes the Scrum framework and it gives more guidance around starting a Scrum project of things that you should consider doing in the inception, identifying, prioritizing, and selecting those projects, and then getting those requirements and those epics, if you will, into your product backlog, organizing them. The product owner organizes them. We run a bunch of sprints, and then we deliver them out to production. This is an example of that Agile Lifecycle. The continuous delivery lean lifecycle, those who are familiar with lean or with Kanban, it's a pull system. There really isn't much of an inception phase or a delivery phase because, well, this is continuous delivery, so you're developing more of a pipeline. But what you're doing in this type of life follows a Kanban where you do have a feature list, or you have some sort of Kanban board where you have your cards in there that are ranked by business value and delivery date, and your work is being pulled rather than being pushed through the system like Scrum does. These cards are pulled through the system based on the team's capacity. And then they're released into production. And then this other one here is called the business service team lifecycle. This is something that's more supports a business service team that may not be delivering like a tangible product. It could be any number of things. It could be a strategy or some other type of service that the business is delivering. So this is something that's fairly new to Disciplined Agile, and it was I just thought I would throw it out here for you all to see. This next one, DA Flex. This is something else that PMI has acquired, is Flex. And they've sort of consolidated it with Disciplined Agile. And what this does is this looks at the value stream, the overall value stream of the entire organization, and how that's delivered to the customer. So it also uses this Kaizen approach of plan, do, study, act. I know we hear things like plan, do, check, act, but Disciplined Agile uses this concept called plan, do, study, act. And what it does is, it's kind of a full life cycle of strategies that go through portfolio management, product management, then has an intake process that goes into planning and allocation, and then it goes into your development cycle, and it follows this this process of trying to improve the value stream of the organization overall, of how the work goes throughput through the system from inception all the way to delivery, and how to make that better through this plan, do, study, act of doing Kaizen experiments and continuous improvements to make things more achievable and more building on improvement. So some of the Disciplined Agile milestones, again, kind of going back to this this life cycle, I guess, if you will, of inception, construction, and transition. It's lightweight and consistent. And like, I want to make sure like it's clear that we're not trying to, Disciplined Agile is not trying to throw waterfall into this any way, shape, or form, but it does recognize again that every project's going to have you need some sort of starting point. And there are milestones that are associated with each of these different phases. And these are all outcome based. They're based on outcomes, and they're not prescriptive. But some of the things that Disciplined Agile looks at in terms of milestones is stakeholder vision. Do stakeholders agree with your strategy, for example? Proven architecture, can we actually build it? Continued viability, does it still make sense? Sufficient functionality at the end of the construction phase. Has a team produced the minimum business increment, or what may be called the MVP? Does it satisfy the acceptance criteria? Does it satisfy the definition of done? Production ready in the transition phase. Will it work in production? And delighting stakeholders, are they happy with the solution? So there are milestones that help you be more successful in Disciplined Agile. Another important concept in Disciplined Agile is what's called guided continuous improvement. This is one of the fundamental things Disciplined Agile uses to go beyond just regular continuous improvement. And the idea is that each team is unique. They all face unique situations again. Your team may not know how well a technique will work until it's actually tried in that specific environment. And what guided continuous improvement does is it uses this Kaizen approach where teams experiment with small changes in their way of working to see what works. If it doesn't work, then they abandon it if it doesn't. If it does, then great. We share the learnings, we make it better, we go around and we keep using it, and we continue to identify problems, and we continue to look at experiments and things that will solve it. And then we assess, we do some level of assessment. If it doesn't work, abandon it. There's something called failing fast in Agile, right? You want to fail fast, you want to learn from your mistakes, and Disciplined Agile recognizes that as part of the framework. So I think I kind of went through all these as I was talking. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint. Sometimes I just talk and I skip going through these, but I think I've pretty much summed it up. Failing fast is fine. This is one thing to really point out, but succeeding early is better. I mean, we want to fail fast, but we also want to succeed earlier as well. And here again is the guided continuous improvement. This is an example, this bottom line here represents time, and this line here represents improvement. And every team, when they adopt a new method or framework at the beginning, there's going to be a decrease in productivity, regardless of what you're doing. But then over time, hopefully over a very short period of time, as you're adopting that framework, you're going to start seeing improvements. And then you're going to get to a point where you're going to see some continuous improvement here. However, guided continuous improvement kind of takes it a little bit to the next level. And this is more around what we talked about earlier with experimenting with different techniques and using that Kaizen approach to get even better than the continuous improvement as you go. So start where you are, do the best you can in the situation you face, and always strive to get better. That's something that Disciplined Agile guides us towards. So in summary here, we have Disciplined Agile. It is a rich, comprehensive, and it's a very well-organized toolkit of strategies to help your organization be more successful in Agile. It brings a disciplined agnostic professional enterprise approach to Agile, which is what our industry has been lacking in the past. As I said earlier, and you can go out and watch some of the Disciplined Agile videos that are out on PMI, or just go to YouTube. Scott Ambler talks a lot about this, and what's happened in the Agile space is that it's become institutionalized to a degree where almost where there's so much confusion out there, and there's really not a lot of glue or mortar to bring things together. It's almost like the Wild West out there, and what Disciplined Agile is trying to do is to put some more rigor around it in terms of yeah, it's great that you can do Scrum and you can run sprints. That's great. It's great that you can deliver 80 story points and you can predict 80 story points each sprint. But at the end of the day, how's that helping the organization? How's the business using that to sort of scale that up and to work with other teams within the organization to spread that success around? How does that fit in? And then something else is understanding what your options are, the ones that work, given the context that you're in, that will lead to better decisions. So in summary, I wanted to then just briefly talk about the certification program here. There's more to it than what I'm going to tell you, but the vision for DA certification is to create a respected, comprehensive, credible, and worthwhile Agile membership and certification body in the world to enable organizations and community members to maximize their enterprise agility potential. So that's kind of what the goal of DA is. It's not to provide Scrum Master certifications through a 2-day course. It's to help promote that learning into more of an enterprise model in order for the entire organization to be successful with Agile, given the context that you're in. So there is a lot of information out there. If you want to go to disciplinedagileconsortium.org, sign up for a free newsletter. You'll get weekly newsletters, monthly newsletters. It's free. You'll get some tips and best practices if you're interested in learning more about it, about what Disciplined Agile is. I will say, though, that there is a separate membership for Disciplined Agile. So I don't think that it's completely integrated with the PMI membership, how you paid like your yearly fee for PMI to have access to, projectmanagement.com and stuff. I believe that the Disciplined Agile site is different in terms of, like, if you want to get specific, more detailed content around it, I believe there's a membership that you have to apply for to be able to do that. But so just to kind of give you my views on it too, on this method, I'm very new to it. I just recently started, I think this is new to everybody here at PMI. I think that, I've done Agile for about 9 years now. I've been a Scrum Master for a very long time. And I struggled with this as well at the beginning when I became a Scrum Master, of how does this fit into the overall organization. And I started, I've done the ACP certification and stuff like that. And that does provide a lot of context in the more of the enterprise level of Agile. But Disciplined Agile, though, really, like, if you really get into it and really try to absorb it, it really does set a lot more context around how Agile fits in, how it can fit into the organization overall, and how you can use some of the methods to help improve. So thank you for your time. I will open it up to a Q&A session. If there's anything, I will try to answer the questions you have. If not, I will parking lot it, and Joe and I will figure out how we can get some of these questions answered for you. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. If anybody would like to post any questions in the chat, we'll be looking at them and I'll read them out loud. Give folks a minute to type.
Oops.
Okay. I don't see any new questions. So this is Joe again. Steve, thank you very much for putting this presentation together and delivering it to us tonight. Oh, actually, we do have a question. So Melissa Satz asked, great presentation. How does DA differ from SAFE?
Yeah, good question. And that's a question I had initially as well. SAFE is, I'm not a SAFE expert, so I can't go into a whole lot of detail of SAFE, but I do know that I will tell you that Disciplined Agile gives a lot more a lot more flexibility around SAFE. SAFE is very prescriptive, and it really pretty much follows Scrum. It doesn't offer as many options in terms of scaling Agile as Disciplined Agile. So that's really like at a high level, that's the biggest difference that I know about it.
Thank you, Steve. We have another question from Todd. Todd asks, does Flex only support DA or does it support Scrum as well?
To my knowledge, it supports it's sort of both. I mean, Flex is part of Disciplined Agile, but Scrum is one of the frameworks within Flex. But I think that you could apply other frameworks as well in there. If we kind of go back and look at that diagram, Scrum is one of like the central piece of Flex. And it's fairly new as well. Flex, like I said, they were kind of just integrated recently when the acquisition took place. I know there's a lot of information to absorb too, so I'm glad everybody understands.
Thank you. Any other questions? So Amir asks, how difficult is it to move from classic management to adopt and be in an agile field?
Well, it depends on the culture of your organization, I guess. I mean, classic management person. Well, it depends. I mean, I will tell you that in my experience that there are a lot of folks who have been classic project managers, or they're used they're used to, you know, the more of the traditional functional style management for a long time, and it's really not that difficult to move them if they're open to it. The thing is that person or those people, they need to be open to learning, to wanting to try something different. And I think what I found a lot of times is that and I'm not bad-mouthing PMPs or waterfall or anything like that, but there are a lot of folks who get frustrated with traditional projects, that they're not delivering value. They're just frustrated with things not getting done. And these are the types of folks who are in classic management, if you will, that want to see change. So it depends how hungry they are for change, I guess. That makes sense.
That's good. Thank you, Steve. Any other questions, folks?
All right. I appreciate everybody's time. I really do.
Yeah, thank you. So some closing remarks real quick. I won't put up the slides again, but so within a week, you will receive, everyone that participated on the call tonight will receive a link to a copy of the slides, a link to the YouTube video recording of this presentation, and information on how to report your own PDUs. We'll also make some adjustments to some of the slides as far as upcoming meetings. Please look at PMINEO.org, check out the website, look at our upcoming events. We've got stuff coming up. We got 3, 4, 5 things coming up in the next few months, and we're going to be adding more. We plan to do some more social events. They're not up there yet on the website yet, but they will be. We will have some more evening events, noon events. So please keep visiting. And I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. And thank you very much again, Steve, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great evening. Take care.